The alien scout ship drifted silently through the emptiness of deep space, its scanners pulsing in rhythmic waves that swept over the massive human warship ahead. For decades, the Varian Dominion had studied humanity from afar, curious, wary, and often amused by their chaotic nature. They'd watched the humans rise from primitive conflict to interstellar travel, still driven by emotion, ambition, and that maddening refusal to bend to galactic law. To the Varians, humans were savages, noisy, unpredictable, and reckless beyond reason. Their weapons were crude by galactic standards: slug throwers, unstable plasma emitters, and nuclear detonations that barely singed planetary crusts. The great powers of the galaxy never feared them. Why would they? Humanity was loud, messy, and small. But now, something had changed. The Varian vessel's scanners returned a flood of data, and the bridge fell into a tense hush. One of the officers turned toward the captain, his crest of scales flattening in unease. "Hi, Captain. You'll want to see this." Zorth, the ship's commander, stepped forward, his narrow pupils contracting as he examined the readout. And what he saw froze him in place. The human ship before them, designation TSS Indomitable, was nothing like any Terran craft on record. It was more fortress than vessel, an armored monstrosity that radiated purpose and defiance. Its hull wasn't built from conventional alloys, but layered composites that absorbed and redirected energy. The armor thickness alone suggested a vessel designed to endure sieges far beyond any logical combat scenario. Then came the weapons data, and Zorth's pulse spiked. Railguns capable of launching slugs at near relativistic velocity. Plasma batteries powerful enough to slice through the heaviest dreadnought plating. Missile silos numbering in the thousands, their warheads described in terms no Varian system could fully decode. Something about spatial distortion and gravitational collapse. And yet, the truly disturbing part wasn't the firepower. It was the intent. The Indomitable carried secondary systems that sent chills through even the hardened Varian crew. Autonomous boarding drones equipped with monomolecular blades, viral hacking systems able to rewrite enemy ship cores, nanite swarms engineered to consume metal and flesh alike. And then, the final entry in the data log: exotroopers, cybernetic soldiers, built from the remains of fallen humans, their bodies reconstructed into walking arsenals. The bridge fell silent. This isn't a ship," whispered one of the officers. "It's a nightmare given form." Zorth's throat tightened. Humanity had always fought like cornered beasts, vicious, desperate, relentless. They had no boundaries, and this vessel was the perfect reflection of that nature. For centuries, the Galactic Union had debated what to do with the Terrans: guide them, contain them, or annihilate them before they became a threat. Most dismissed them as irrelevant. That, Zorth realized, had been a catastrophic mistake. "Cut active scans," he ordered quietly. "Disarm all weapons. Send a message to command." The communications officer hesitated. "What should we tell them, Captain?" Zorth exhaled slowly, his spines trembling. "Tell them we must never provoke the humans." But even as the order went out, it was already too late. A pulse of energy rippled across the Indomitable's hull. Lights flared. Their scanners picked up power spikes across the human ship's systems, weapon signatures locking onto them one by one. And then, a voice filled the bridge. "Cold, mechanical, unmistakably human, unidentified vessel. You are scanning a Terran warship. State your purpose immediately." Every Varian froze. Their stealth fields were still active. No other species had ever pierced them before. Yet the humans had. Zorth's mind raced. If he said the wrong thing, this human creation could erase them from existence in a heartbeat. He steadied himself, motioned to open a channel, and forced his spines flat. "This is High Captain Zorth of the Varian Exploration Fleet," he said evenly. "We mean no harm. We were only observing." There was silence. Then a faint chuckle. Mocking, amused. "Observing, huh? Thought your fancy cloaks made you invisible." Zorth felt his stomach twist. "They knew. That was not our intent," he lied. "We observe all developing civilizations. Yours is of interest." The human ship's systems hummed. Weapons priming, engines roaring to life. Dozens of targeting locks now painted their vessel. There was nowhere to run. Finally, the voice returned. "I suggest you pick another species to spy on." A warning, and beneath it, a promise of annihilation. Zorth swallowed. "Understood. We will depart immediately." A pause. Then the human replied, voice dripping with cold confidence. Good choice. Now run along, little scout, and remember who owns this sector. The channel cut. Jump us out, Zorth barked. The Varian ship spun, engines flaring, and vanished into the dark. Only once they were light years away did Zorth finally exhale. Humanity was no longer just dangerous. They were something far worse. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The Varian scout ship burst out of hyperspace, leaving the shadow of the Indomitable far behind. Captain Zorth had expected relief upon their escape, but none came. Instead, a cold weight settled deep in his chest, pressing tighter with every passing moment. He stared through the viewport as the stars streaked by, his reflection ghostly in the glass. For the first time in his life, he realized what true fear felt like. Send a priority transmission to command, he ordered. Encryption level Omega. His communications officer hesitated. Captain, what do we tell them? Zorth's voice was quiet but unyielding. The truth. The humans are not what we thought they were. Minutes later, the message pulsed through subspace toward Varian High Command. All they could do was wait. The crew moved in silence. No one dared to speak. They all felt it. That primal dread that had taken root the moment the Indomitable turned its gaze upon them. Hours passed before the reply arrived, short and chilling. Return immediately. The War Council convenes. Humanity must be re-evaluated. Zorth read the words again and again, his claws digging into the armrest. The War Council, the Dominion's supreme authority, was summoned only in moments of existential crisis. The last time it had gathered in full force was during the Ula Hive Wars, when an entire quadrant had been devoured, and now the humans were being placed in the same category. When the Scout of Dawn descended toward the Varian capital world of Zulthor, the city's metallic spires gleamed under twin suns. Military banners rippled from every tower. Normally, Zorth would have felt pride returning to the heart of the Dominion, but this time, he felt only dread. Guards escorted him through long halls of black steel until the colossal doors of the War Council chamber loomed before him. They opened with a thunderous hiss, revealing 13 warlords seated around an obsidian table. At the center sat Grand Warlord Torval, a living legend whose scars told of 100 campaigns. His eyes, cold, golden, and ancient, locked onto Zorth. Captain, Torval said, his voice carrying the weight of command. You've seen something that troubles you. Zorth bowed his head. I have, Grand Warlord, and what I bring may change everything. He activated his wrist console, projecting holographic images above the table. Scans, schematics, energy signatures from the human ship. The room dimmed as the ghostly image of the Indomitable appeared before them. Rotating slowly, this, Zorth said, is a human warship, one vessel, and yet it possesses more destructive potential than an entire Varian battle group. Murmurs filled the chamber. The data streams scrolling beside the hologram detailed its armor composition, power output, and weapon profiles. Warlord Veer, a veteran known for his arrogance, let out a derisive snort. Impossible. The Terrans are primitives. They lack the sophistication to build something of this magnitude. Zorth turned sharply toward him. Then explain how they detected us through stealth fields that no other species has ever pierced. Explain how their targeting systems locked on before we even realized we'd been exposed. Veer faltered, his jaw tightening. Zorth continued, his tone sharp. They could have destroyed us instantly. Instead, they let us leave. Do you understand what that means? Torval leaned forward, his golden eyes narrowing. Tell us. It means, Zorth said slowly, that they are confident. They know their power, and they know we cannot challenge them. That is what makes them truly dangerous. The chamber fell silent. For centuries, the Dominion had considered humanity a minor curiosity, a species destined either to destroy itself or be easily conquered. But now the evidence hung before them, proof that humans had surpassed every expectation. Torval's claws drummed on the table. So, he said at last, you suggest we treat them as a superior power? Zorth met his gaze. No, Grand Warlord, I suggest we treat them as a potential apex power. The room erupted into heated argument. Some called for preemptive strikes. Others demanded alliance. A few simply sat in stunned disbelief. Through it all, Torval said nothing. He only stared at the image of the Indomitable, his expression unreadable. Finally he spoke, his voice low but firm. End this session. The guards looked confused. No council meeting had ever ended without orders. But they obeyed. As the other warlords filed out, Zorth lingered. Torval remained seated, eyes fixed on the hologram. You believe, the Grand Warlord said quietly, that humanity is preparing for war. Zorth's throat tightened. No, my lord, he said. I believe they are preparing for something far worse. The War Council chamber emptied, leaving only the low hum of the holoprojector and the faint echo of armoured footsteps fading into the distance. Captain Zorth stood motionless, unsure whether to speak or to simply vanish from the Grand Warlord's sight. Torval remained seated, his gaze locked on the spectral image of the Indomitable floating before him. The massive Terran warship spun slowly in the air, its dark armour shimmering in the dim light. At last, Torval spoke. Sit, Captain. We have much to discuss. Zorth obeyed, lowering himself into the chair across from the Dominion's most powerful leader. You have served our fleet for 23 cycles, Torval began. You've encountered pirate armadas, the Hive, the Crawl incursions, but I can see it in your eyes. This encounter was different. Yes, Grand Warlord, Zorth said quietly. Different and far worse. Torval gestured for him to continue. Zorth activated his datapad again. This time, a different projection filled the chamber. A galactic map, dotted with glowing lights representing human colonies. At first glance, these appear scattered, Zorth explained. But look closer. The lights pulsed in sequence, revealing faint lines between them. Trade routes, supply paths, defense perimeters. It wasn't random expansion, it was strategy. In just 50 standard years, Zorth continued, the humans have colonized over 200 worlds, but they didn't expand where most species do, toward resource-rich systems or habitable clusters. They expanded along military corridors. Torval's brow furrowed. Explain. They're building choke points, sir, systems that control access to warp lanes, mining regions, and supply routes. They're not just spreading, they're fortifying. He magnified one of the sectors, a stretch of human-controlled space known as the Orion Arm. A dozen fortified colonies formed a rough crescent, a natural defensive wall. They call it the Bastion Line, Zorth said. Every world bristling with planetary cannons, orbital shields, and automated defense platforms. They're preparing for war, but not just any war. A long one. Torval's claws tapped against the table. Do we have any indication who their enemy is? Zorth hesitated. No known threats remain in their immediate region. The last hostile species, the Drath, were destroyed a decade ago by the humans themselves. Destroyed? Utterly, Zorth said grimly. The Drath homeworld was rendered uninhabitable. The humans didn't conquer them. They erased them. Torval leaned back, exhaling through his fangs. And the Council still calls them primitives. There's more, Zorth said, switching the display again. We intercepted fragments of Terran military transmissions. The encryption was strong, but one phrase repeated across multiple sectors. Project Salvation. Torval's eyes narrowed. Meaning? We don't know yet, Zorth admitted. But if the Indomitable was part of it, the scale is beyond anything the Dominion has ever attempted. Silence settled between them. Outside, the twin suns of Zalthor began to sink, their light spilling through the massive viewport, casting long shadows across the chamber. Finally, Torval rose from his seat. You said they let you live. Why? Zorth swallowed. I think it was deliberate. A message. They wanted us to see their strength, to carry the warning back home. Torval nodded slowly, as if confirming something he had long suspected. Perhaps they wanted us to spread their legend. Fear is a weapon too. He turned away, his massive silhouette framed against the dying light. Captain Zorth, I am authorizing a covert directive, Spectre Protocol. You are to take a stealth corvette and return to Terran space. Gather whatever intelligence you can. I want to know what they're building and why. Zorth's throat went dry. With respect, Grand Warlord, another incursion might provoke them. If they detect us again, then you'll die, Torval interrupted coldly. But better you than the entire Dominion. The words hit like a blow. Zorth bowed his head. As you command. Torval turned back toward the hologram one last time. Find out what Project Salvation means, he said quietly, and pray to whatever gods you believe in that it's not what I think it is. As Zorth left the chamber, the great doors sealing behind him with a metallic thud, He realized that for the first time in Varian history, their greatest fear wasn't of an invading species, it was of humanity itself. The Spectre was unlike any vessel in the Varian fleet, a needle-shaped phantom cloaked in adaptive light fields and quantum distortion screens. Designed for deep infiltration, it could drift unseen even in a crowded orbit. Zorth stood on its command deck as the final launch codes flickered across his display. Around him, a small hand-picked crew moved with silent precision. None had volunteered, all had been chosen. The engines whispered to life, and within moments, the ship slipped into hyperspace, leaving Varian territory behind. Their destination, Epsilon Theta, the outermost edge of human-controlled space, where fragments of Terran transmissions hinted at something vast being constructed. For 7 standard days, they traveled without incident. The crew avoided conversation. Fear had a way of silencing even the bravest. Every rumor about humanity's wrath haunted their thoughts. The way human fleets vanished into the void, only to reappear where their enemies least expected them. The way entire civilizations simply disappeared after provoking them. When they emerged from hyperspace, the sight that greeted them stole every word from Zorth's throat. Before them hung a structure so enormous it dwarfed entire moons, a ringed station orbiting a dead star. Its metallic surface gleamed with energy grids the size of continents. Massive engines pulsed at each segment, drawing power from the collapsed core below. Sensors struggled to comprehend its readings. Energy signatures peaked beyond measurable thresholds. Materials used in its construction didn't exist in any galactic database. "By the stars," whispered the ship's navigator. What is that?" Zorth could barely breathe. "Begin passive scans. No emissions. I want every byte of data." The Spectre drifted closer, its cloak bending light perfectly around its hull. Through the viewport, they could see human ships swarming around the station. Freighters, warships, construction drones, all moving with frightening coordination. A digital beacon pulsed from the station's surface. Their translator began to decode it. Terran superstructure. Project Salvation. Phase 7. Initiated. There it was, the name from the intercepted transmissions. The data feed scrolled rapidly. Lists of materials, ship manifests, energy calculations. Then came the line that froze Zorth's blood. Planetary evacuation protocols. Approved. Evacuation? Of what? He expanded the feed. Hundreds of colony worlds were listed, populations in the billions, each one marked with a single tag, relocation authorized. Grand Warlord Torval suspected preparation for war, Zorth murmured. But this looks like they're preparing to leave. His science officer frowned. Leave? As in, abandon their empire? Zorth shook his head slowly. No, not abandon, escape. Before anyone could respond, the sensor alarms flared. The display flooded with red. "Detection field expanding," cried the technician. "Some kind of spatial pulse. It's sweeping the system." "Hold our position," Zorth snapped. "Stay cloaked." The pulse passed over them, a silent wave of blue light that rippled across the void. For a moment, the ship seemed to tremble as reality itself quivered. Then, another signal. This one aimed directly at them. Zorth's heart lurched. "Impossible." The comms crackled to life. "Unidentified vessel. You are trespassing in Terran-restricted space." The same voice. Cold, calm, human. The bridge went still. They hadn't been visible, hadn't emitted a single trace of energy. Yet somehow, the humans had found them again. "Cut engines," Zorth barked. "Full power to cloak." Too late. A shadow fell across their hull. An enormous Terran destroyer drifting silently into view, its angular silhouette blotting out the distant stars. Its name burned across its side, TSS Retribution. Zorth's breath caught. "They knew we'd come," he whispered. A new transmission followed, this time visual. A human face appeared. Cold eyes, scarred features, a uniform marked with a single emblem. A burning star encircled by chains. "This is Admiral Kepler of the Terran Vanguard. You're far from home, alien. State your intent." Zorth hesitated, knowing lies were useless. "We are explorers," he said carefully. "We mean no aggression." Kepler tilted his head slightly as if studying an insect. "Explorers don't hide behind cloaks." The Varian captain forced his spines flat. "We came to understand your construction, your project." The Admiral's expression didn't change. "Then understand this. You've seen what you shouldn't have. Project Salvation isn't for you. It's for everyone else. The feed cut off. Moments later, the Retribution's main batteries began to charge. Silent, steady, inevitable. Zorth clenched his fists. "Prepare for emergency warp!" But before they could engage, something else happened. The Terran ship powered down its weapons. Instead, a transmission came through, a single coded phrase. Their translator processed it, and the words appeared on the screen. "Run home, alien. Tell your masters the end is coming, and it won't be us who bring it." Then the Retribution vanished into the void, leaving only silence behind. Zorth stood frozen, the words echoing in his mind. Not us who bring it. Whatever humanity was preparing for. It wasn't war, it was survival. The Spectre tore through hyperspace, its hull groaning under the strain. The crew said nothing. No one dared to break the silence that had followed the humans' final transmission. It won't be us who bring the end. The words replayed endlessly in Zorth's mind, colder than any vacuum outside. When they finally emerged into Verian territory, the ship's systems were barely holding together. Zorth ordered immediate docking at the Dominion's Deep Space Command Post, Citadel 9, a fortress hidden inside a hollow asteroid, far from civilian eyes. As the Spectre settled into its berth, technicians swarmed the hangar, but Zorth waved them off. "No repairs, no scans. Lock this ship down under my authority. No data leaves it until I say so." The officer in charge hesitated but obeyed. Zorth strode through the corridors toward the secure briefing chamber, where Grand Warlord Torval awaited. When the doors sealed behind him, Zorth deactivated his helmet and met his commander's gaze. "You were right," he said without preamble. "The humans are preparing for something beyond war." Torval gestured for him to continue. "Explain." Zorth activated a holomap, this time not of human territory, but of empty space beyond it. The projection shimmered, then expanded to reveal faint ripples spreading across the galactic spiral. Gravitational distortions. Wave fronts of unknown energy. "These readings were gathered from Terran beacons," Zorth said. "Every one of their colonies, every fortified world, sits along the edge of these disturbances." Torval frowned. "Disturbances? From what source?" "That's what we can't determine. The patterns are cyclical, increasing in strength every few centuries. According to Terran data, the next peak is due within 2 decades. Torval's eyes narrowed. "And the humans call this Project Salvation." "Yes," Zorth confirmed. "They're not building weapons, they're building arcs. Massive generation ships, evacuation fleets, superstructures capable of housing entire populations. They're preparing to flee the galaxy." For a long moment there was no sound except the hum of the hologram. Torval rose slowly. "Flee the galaxy? That's madness." Zorth's tone was grim. "Madness or foresight, depending on what they've seen coming." He hesitated, then added, "The human admiral, Kepler, said the end wasn't theirs to bring. Something else is approaching, something they believe cannot be stopped." Torval's claws tightened on the edge of the table. "Do we have any data on this supposed threat?" "Fragments," Zorth said, pulling up more visuals. "Static-filled transmissions from derelict probes. Fractured images of collapsing stars and distorted light. They called it the Eater of Suns." Torval's crest stiffened. "A myth, perhaps once," Zorth said softly. "But the humans seem convinced it's real. They've mapped dozens of systems gone dark. Stars extinguished without explosion, planets left adrift. Whatever's consuming them leaves nothing behind, not even debris." Torval's gaze hardened. "And you believe this?" Zorth hesitated, then answered truthfully. "I believe the humans do, and I believe they've been preparing for centuries." The Grand Warlord paced slowly, his armored boots echoing against the steel floor. "If what you say is true, then every empire in the galaxy is living on borrowed time." Zorth nodded. "And humanity is the only one acting like it." Torval stopped, turning toward him. "Then we cannot afford to dismiss them as savages any longer. We must know what they know." He moved to the console, opening a secure channel to the Dominion's inner council. "Prepare a summit," he commanded. "Every major power must be informed. And send word to the Union worlds. The humans must be included." Zorth blinked in disbelief. "You want to invite them?" Torval's golden eyes gleamed. "If they are preparing for extinction, then they may be our only hope to avoid it." Zorth studied him for a long moment. The Grand Warlord, once humanity's harshest critic, was now calling them allies. The irony was almost unbearable. But before he could respond, alarms began to echo through the Citadel's corridors. The lights dimmed. The holograms flickered and died. "Report," Torvald barked. A trembling voice came through the comms. Sir, sensors just detected a massive energy fluctuation near the Perseus arm. Entire systems are going dark." Torvald turned sharply towards Zorth. "Coordinates?" The officer hesitated. "It's human space, my lord. The first colony on their bastion line." Zorth's blood ran cold. Whatever humanity had been preparing for, it had just arrived. The command center of Citadel 9 erupted into chaos. Dozens of officers scrambled across the floor, holoscreens lighting up with frantic data streams. Energy readings spiked beyond comprehension, gravitational tremors rippling across entire sectors. Zorth and Grand Warlord Torvald stood before the main display as the feed stabilized, projecting a star map of the human bastion line. Where once a cluster of bright systems glowed, there was now a spreading void, a black scar devouring the light itself. "Zoom in," Torvald ordered. The image magnified, showing the Terran colony of Vega Prime, or what was left of it. The planet's surface boiled under collapsing atmospheres. Its sun, a white dwarf, was being pulled inward, twisted by invisible forces into a dense spiral of shadow. "It's consuming the star," whispered one of the technicians. "Not supernova, not implosion. It's just vanishing." Zorth's hands curled into fists. "The Eater of Suns," he murmured. "It's real." Before Torvald could respond, another alert flared. "Incoming broadcast, open frequency, unencrypted. Origin, Terran Command." The screen flickered to life, showing the face of Admiral Kepler, the same man who had warned Zorth weeks ago. His face was lit by the glow of fire and data displays, the chaos of battle visible behind him. "To all listening, this is Admiral Kepler of the Terran Vanguard. The entity has entered populated space. Designation confirmed. Class Omega threat. This is not an invasion. This is annihilation." He paused, the sound of distant alarms echoing in the background. "To every species within reach, stay away from the Perseus arm. The event horizon is expanding faster than light. We are engaging containment measures, but if you enter this region, you will not return." The transmission cut to static. Silence gripped the Varian command center. The officers looked to Torvald for guidance, but even the Grand Warlord seemed momentarily frozen. Then, another signal appeared. A live feed from a Terran observation satellite at the system's edge. The entity came into view. At first, it looked like a distortion, a ripple in space, barely visible except for the way it bent starlight around it. But as the sensors focused, its true form became clearer, a swirling abyss of dark matter and radiant arcs, vast enough to eclipse entire planets. Within its depths, faint shapes flickered, like tendrils of living energy reaching out, hungering for more. "It's feeding," Zorth whispered, "consuming both matter and energy." As they watched, one of the Terran fleets, dozens of warships strong, launched a coordinated assault. Railguns and plasma lances tore through the void, detonating with the fury of suns. For a moment, the darkness recoiled. Then it adapted. The weapon's impacts dissolved into the blackness as if devoured. The energy signatures from the fleet vanished one by one. The entire armada was gone, erased without a trace. A horrified murmur swept through the Varian officers. Torvald slammed his clawed hand against the console. "They're fighting a god," he hissed. "No weapon can touch that." Zorth shook his head. "They know that. They're buying time." Torvald turned sharply toward him. "Time for what?" Zorth looked back to the dark feed, his mind racing. "For Project Salvation. They're not trying to win. They're trying to escape." As if on cue, another data stream appeared. Deep space relays across human territory began to activate. Massive jump gates, thousands of kilometers wide, each linked to the enormous ring-like structure Zorth had seen orbiting the dead star. The Salvation Network. Energy surged across the gates, so powerful that nearby systems flickered under the strain. "They're moving entire worlds," said one of the technicians in awe. "Massive civilian ships, thousands of them, heading toward the superstructure. They're evacuating by the billions." Torvald stared at the data, his voice low. "They planned this for centuries." "Yes," Zorth said quietly. "And they never told anyone. Not the Union, not the Dominion. They knew we'd never believe them." Another alert chimed. The feed from Vega Prime went dark. The star was gone, swallowed whole. The technicians turned pale. "The anomaly is expanding, my lord. It's moving toward the next system." Torvald's jaw clenched. Send word to the Council. Evacuate our frontier colonies. If this thing spreads beyond Terran space, Zorth finished the thought grimly, then none of us are safe. Outside the viewport, the stars still gleamed. Beautiful, eternal. But now, every light carried a question that chilled the soul. How long until the darkness reached them too? The War Council chambers of the Galactic Union had never been this full. Representatives from every major species crowded the towering amphitheater, some trembling with fear, others burning with outrage. Above them, holographic projections displayed the expanding black void devouring star after star. The Eater of Suns had already consumed 3 human systems. Entire populations were gone, and yet the humans kept fighting. Grand Warlord Torval stood beside Zorth at the central dais, his armor gleaming beneath the cold light. Before them, 100 alien leaders argued, shouted, accused. "This is the Terrans' doing." A delegate from the Solari Collective hissed, her crystalline form trembling. They awakened something they could not control. "They warned us!" countered a gruff Lethan general, slamming his tail against the floor. "You saw the data. They tried to stop it alone, and failed." Another shouted, "Now it spreads into our space." Zorth raised his voice, silencing the uproar. "Enough! The humans are not our enemy. The thing devouring those systems is. If we continue fighting among ourselves, we won't even live long enough to argue." A heavy silence fell. Torval stepped forward, his tone grave. "The Dominion has already begun mobilization. Our fleets stand ready. But without coordination, without shared strategy, we are all lost." At that moment, the chamber lights dimmed, and a new hologram shimmered into existence in the center of the room. A man appeared, tall, weathered, his uniform marked with the insignia of the Terran Vanguard. "Admiral Elias Grant," Zorth murmured. "The humans had sent their war hero, leaders of the Union," Grant said, his voice calm despite the chaos. "Humanity stands at the edge of extinction, but we will not fall quietly. The entity you call the Eater of Suns, we name it the Abyssal Singularity. It is not alive in the way we understand life. It is an ancient weapon, older than our galaxies, a remnant from a war no one remembers." He paused as grim murmurs rippled through the assembly. "Our scientists have traced its path. It doesn't move randomly. It follows gravitational lines, consuming energy until it collapses a region entirely, then jumps to the next. Once it consumes the core systems, it will head for yours." Torval frowned. "You mean to say this thing feeds on the very fabric of reality?" Grant nodded slowly. "Yes, and it's accelerating." The hologram shifted to display a massive construct orbiting a dying star, the structure Zorth had seen before. "This," Grant said, "is Project Salvation, a failsafe we've built for nearly a century. It's a dimensional gate network designed to move entire civilizations, not just ships, but planets, stations, everything we can anchor." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Even the most technologically advanced races stared in disbelief. "You intend to abandon the galaxy?" one delegate exclaimed. Grant's image met their gaze. "Not abandon, preserve. We can't stop the singularity yet, but we can ensure something survives it." Zorth stepped forward. "And what do you need from us?" Grant's voice hardened. "Everything. Materials, power, ships. If we work together, we might buy enough time to complete the exodus." A hush fell across the room. The idea of uniting with humanity, once feared, now desperate, stirred unease among the gathered leaders. Finally, Torval spoke, his voice like rolling thunder. "Then the Dominion stands with you, human." Zorth turned toward him, surprised but proud. The declaration sent a ripple of motion through the crowd as other leaders conferred in hushed tones. One by one they joined. "The Solari Collective will assist. The Lethan Armada pledges its fleet. The Torvan Accord agrees." For the first time in history, the fractured powers of the galaxy found a single purpose. Grant's expression softened, almost humanly weary. "Then we stand together, or we fall apart." The hologram flickered out, leaving silence behind. Zorth turned to Torval. "Do you trust them?" Torval's eyes glowed faintly. "No," he said, "but I believe them." Beyond the chamber walls, the stars burned on, fragile beacons in a sky already dying. And as the first joint fleet mobilized under a new banner, one thought echoed through every heart, human and alien alike. The war for survival has begun. The newly forged Alliance fleet gathered at the edge of the Perseus Arm, a spectacle of unimaginable power. Thousands of ships from 100 worlds formed ranks around humanity's titanic evacuation structures. Varian dreadnoughts hovered beside Terran battlecruisers, Solari energy vessels pulsing like living crystals. For the first time, species that had once waged endless wars now fought as one. Zorth stood aboard the Vanguard's Promise, humanity's flagship, staring through the observation glass as the darkness expanded before them. The abyss looked calm, deceptively so. No light escaped it, no signal returned from within. Beside him, Admiral Grant studied a tactical display, his expression grim. Our probes vanished the instant they crossed the event perimeter. Not destroyed, just erased, like they never existed. Torvald's voice crackled through the comlink from his command ship. Then we strike before it grows further. We'll pour everything into it until something happens. Grant's jaw tightened. We've tried that, Warlord. The entity absorbs energy. Every weapon only feeds it. Then we starve it, Torvald growled. Cut it off from what it devours. Zorth's eyes flicked to the readings. If it follows gravity wells, it's feeding on mass, stars, planets, energy signatures. What if we create a void? A gravitational dead zone? Grant's head turned sharply. You mean collapse the nearest cluster? Detonate the stars themselves to disrupt its trajectory? It would take everything we have, Zorth said. And it might not even slow it down. Grant's silence said enough. They were gambling with existence itself. Moments later, the fleet received its orders. Operation Eclipse. Every ship capable of generating singularity torpedoes or quantum destabilizers formed attack lines around the Bastion Line's outer systems. The goal, to overload the local stars, collapsing them before the abyss could consume them. The operation began. Across the void, artificial novas bloomed, brilliant, tragic bursts of light that marked entire worlds lost. The shockwaves rippled through the black. For the first time, the abyss shifted. It's reacting, a technician shouted. The distortion is changing direction. Cheers erupted, but Zorth didn't share them. His instinct screamed that something was wrong. The main view expanded, and he saw it. The void wasn't retreating, it was coalescing. The energy they'd unleashed wasn't pushing it back, it was feeding it faster. Before anyone could react, the abyss surged outward. The ships nearest the perimeter vanished instantly, their hulls dissolving into streams of light. Space itself twisted like liquid glass, swallowing everything in its path. Fall back, Grant roared. All units, retreat to phase line Alpha. The fleet scrambled, warping away in desperate waves, but thousands were already gone. When the chaos settled, what remained of the Alliance regrouped at a distant relay station, shaken, wounded, but alive. In the aftermath, scientists analyzed what little data had been recovered from the attack. Zorth joined Grant and the Dominion researchers in the command hall as the holograms flickered to life again. A Varian scientist spoke first. We isolated fragments of the energy field. It isn't random. The signatures show pattern recognition, adaptation. It's learning, Grant frowned. Learning what? The scientist hesitated, then magnified the image. Hidden within the waveforms was a faint resonance, structured, repeating, coded. It's a signal, she said softly. A transmission woven into the void. Zorth leaned forward. From what source? The scientist met his gaze. From within, the abyss itself. The pattern expanded, translated through linguistic matrices until the message appeared as flickering words across the display. We are what remains. Silence. No one breathed. Grant's voice broke the stillness. Remains of what? The hologram shifted. A new data scrolled across the projection. Ancient radiation traces, matching the relics found in long-dead galaxies. Zorth's eyes widened as the conclusion formed. It's not a natural phenomenon. It's a construct, a remnant of something that came before us. The room went deathly quiet. Torvald's voice rumbled through the comlink, dark and low. Are you saying this thing was built? By who? Grant looked up, his voice hollow. Not who, Warlord. What? He tapped the console, bringing up the final decoded transmission. A single phrase appeared, repeated across eons of data. A name lost to time. The Architects of Silence. The revelation hit like a thunderclap. The entity was not chaos. It was the legacy of an extinct civilization that had once tried to cleanse the stars, and it was still following their command. The news spread through the Alliance like wildfire. The abyssal singularity, The devourer of suns wasn't born of chaos or nature. It was engineered, designed, deployed on the command deck of the Vanguard's Promise. Admiral Grant stood before a vast projection of the Milky Way. Dozens of systems blinked out every hour, their light fading from the map like dying embers. Zorth entered quietly, armor scorched from recent skirmishes along the frontier. "Reports say 3 more colonies gone," he said. "At this rate, the Abyss reaches the galactic core within a decade." Grant didn't look up. "Then we have 10 years to finish what they started." Zorth frowned. "You mean the architects?" Grant nodded slowly. "Yes. They didn't just build the singularity to destroy life. They built it to reset it." He gestured to the hologram. "Our scientists found ancient resonance fields across dead galaxies, places where life re-emerged centuries after total annihilation. The architects weren't conquerors. They were gardeners, ruthless ones. When civilizations reached a certain point, when they threatened the cosmic balance, the architects unleashed their creation to clear the slate." Zorth's mandibles twitched. "A cleansing cycle." Grant's voice was heavy. "And now it's our turn." The realization sank in like poison. Every star, every world, doomed not by fate, but by design. Torval's holographic form materialized beside them, his expression grim. "If this thing follows the architect's pattern, then destroying it may be impossible." Grant's eyes hardened. "That's why we stop following their rules." He activated another projection, the colossal ring world orbiting the dying star known as Helion 6. It pulsed with energy, drawing power from the star's final breaths. "This is Salvation Prime," he said. "The core of Project Salvation. It's more than a gate. It's a dimensional stabilizer, built to pierce the boundaries between universes." Zorth tilted his head. "You're planning to leave this reality?" Grant nodded. "We've been working toward this for centuries, ever since our ancestors found the ruins of the architects on Mars." Zorth froze. "Mars?" Grant's eyes met his. "Humanity didn't evolve alone. The architects visited us long ago. They seeded our world with fragments of their knowledge, tools, technology. They thought we'd rebuild the cycle after them. Instead, we learned to fight it." Torval's image flickered, voice laced with disbelief. "So all this time, your species has been preparing not for war, but for escape." "Not escape," Grant corrected. "Continuity. We can't destroy the Abyss, but we can outlive it. Move beyond its reach." Zorth looked out at the dying stars. "And what of the others? The billions who won't make it to your gates?" Grant's silence was the only answer needed. Torval's glare hardened. "You're asking the galaxy to help you abandon it?" Grant's tone was quiet but steady. "I'm asking you to survive. If even one fragment of life endures, then the architect's purpose fails." They wanted silence. "We'll give them defiance instead." Zorth's gaze softened. He saw no arrogance in the human, only exhaustion, the resolve of a species that had carried this burden far too long. He placed a clawed hand against the console. "Then I'll stand with you, Admiral. If your kind can build a future beyond this nightmare, the Varian Dominion will guard your path." Grant inclined his head. "Then we make our stand together." Moments later, alarms echoed across the fleet. New gravitational distortions appeared on the edge of Alliance territory. "It's splitting," a technician shouted. "Multiple singularities forming, smaller, faster. It's adapting again." Zorth turned sharply to Grant. "They're multiplying their weapon." Grant's expression didn't change. "Then it knows what we're doing. It's accelerating the purge before we can escape." Torval's hologram flickered with static as he bellowed orders to mobilize. "All fleets to defensive formation. Hold the line at any cost." Grant's voice dropped low. "Prepare the Exodus gates. Activate Phase 1 of Salvation Prime." Outside the viewport, the stars shuddered as the great rings of Project Salvation came to life. Titanic constructs, glowing like halos of fire. Wormholes began to bloom, their light cutting through the encroaching darkness like fragile hope. For the first time in millennia, every surviving civilization had one purpose: to defy extinction. But as the Alliance moved into position, new data streamed across the consoles. The smaller singularities weren't random. They were moving toward the gates. Zorth's blood ran cold. "It's not just consuming, it's hunting us." Grant's eyes narrowed. "Then we make our final move before it catches us." The galaxy was dying. Stars collapsed one by one, their final light swallowed by the spreading blackness. Across every transmission channel, desperate signals flared and vanished. Echoes of civilizations erased in silence. On the bridge of the Vanguard's Promise, Admiral Grant watched the final evacuation unfold. The colossal rings of Salvation Prime spun faster than ever, drawing energy from the heart of Helion 6. Space itself trembled as billions of refugees poured through the glowing wormholes, each ship carrying the remnants of entire worlds. Zorth stood beside him, his eyes fixed on the readings. The smaller singularities are converging. They'll reach Helion's orbit within hours. Then that's all the time we have, Grant said. Begin Phase 2. A deep hum filled the ship as massive conduits opened along the hulls of the Salvation Rings. Streams of light arced between them, forming a barrier of pure gravitational force, a final shield against the void. Torval's voice thundered through the comlink. The Dominion fleet stands ready. We'll hold the line until the last transport crosses. Grant's tone softened. You don't have to do this, Warlord. Torval gave a low, rumbling laugh. You humans brought us unity when the stars were ending. I'll not run from the dark now. Zorth turned toward him. Then neither will I, the fleet mobilized. Human, Varian, Solari, Lethan. All species stood side by side, their combined firepower lighting the heavens in defiance. The void answered. The first wave of micro-singularities tore into reality, shredding ships like paper. The void pulsed, a vast consciousness stirring, reacting. Space rippled as the main abyssal core appeared at the edge of the system, a storm of gravity and light, immense and terrible. Target the core, Grant ordered. All batteries, fire! Thousands of weapons unleashed their fury. Energy lances, antimatter shells, gravity implosions. Every weapon ever forged struck the darkness. For the first time, it staggered. Direct hit, Zorth shouted. It's weakening! But then the abyss screamed. The sound wasn't heard. It was felt. A vibration through the bones of reality. One by one, the stars around Helion went out. The darkness advanced. Grant's crew looked to him for guidance, but he stood silent, eyes locked on the main display. Then he spoke, calm, resolute. Activate the Helion protocol. The technician hesitated. Sir, that will collapse the star. I know, Grant said. Do it! Zorth's gaze sharpened. You're detonating your own sun, Grant nodded. If we can't defeat the abyss, we'll give it something it can't consume. Nothing. The order was carried out. Deep within Helion 6, humanity's last weapon, a gravimetric implosion device, detonated. The star folded inward, then erupted in a burst of light so powerful it shattered the surrounding space. The shockwave hit the void like a hammer. For a heartbeat, the abyss faltered, collapsing in on itself. The micro-singularities dissolved, their connections severed. Now! Grant shouted. Initiate full evacuation, all gates open. Across the system, wormholes blazed. Millions of ships vanished through the light, carrying the survivors of 1,000 worlds into the unknown. Zorth turned to the Admiral. You should come. The last gate is closing. Grant's expression softened. Someone has to make sure it closes behind you. Zorth hesitated, realization dawning. You intend to stay? Grant gave a faint smile. Someone has to light the fuse. He extended his hand, a rare gesture between warrior and friend. Zorth clasped it firmly. Your name will not be forgotten, human. Grant's reply was simple. Then make sure there's someone left to remember it. Zorth turned and ran for the transport bay. Behind him, alarms blared as the final exodus gate opened. The Varian ship leapt into the wormhole just as Helion 6 collapsed completely. Through the distortion, Zorth looked back one last time and saw the galaxy vanish in blinding light. Then, silence. When the Varian fleet emerged on the other side, there was no familiar sky, no constellations, only an endless sea of newborn stars, a new universe. Zorth fell to his knees, awestruck. He did it. He bought us time. Torval's voice, weary but alive, came over the comm. No. He bought us hope. Far beyond their reach, in the void between realities, something stirred. The last fragment of the abyssal singularity drifted, wounded, weakened, but not gone. A faint whisper echoed through the cosmic dark. Cycle interrupted, recalibrating. The stars of the new universe burned brighter, unaware that the architect's shadow had followed them once more. The war was over, but the story had only just begun.